All right, welcome back to our show. Welcome back to Usapang Musiko Season 2. And of course, this is Ryan Monakil. And for today's podcast episode, we will be talking about unlearning. Okay, so unlearning in a sense of how. Ooh, I think I'm experiencing some technical difficulties. Wait a bit, guys. There's no video, okay? Let me just check. Sound check. Mic test. Hello? I'm not sure what's happening right now. Sorry. Mic test. Not sure what's happening right. Okay. Wait, my video is not showing, right? But there's audio. Okay. Let me just reset. Sorry for the technical difficulties. All right, let's do that again. All right, sorry about that. Welcome back to another episode of Usapang Musiko Season 2. And in today's episode, we will be talking about unlearning as a skill. Okay, so as a skill of every, I don't know, not just musician, maybe, even if you are like an artist or even in a corporate setting, you could still use this, no? So, unlearning, taking away bad things that you have developed over time and adding a new set of techniques or skills and how you could do it more effectively so it could translate better in whatever craft you are trying to progress from. Okay, so for me, no, personally, as I have been playing for over 20 years, no, I think it's gonna be 21 or 22. I'm not really sure by this year, no, but music for me, no, as a musician has always been changing, and my techniques have been evolving to a point wherein I have things that I know right now that I've never learned before. And also, I've lost a lot of things that I've learned before that I do not use now. No? Okay. So, how could you effectively do that without suffering a lot when it comes to, the pains of growing as a musician and actually just stepping up and getting everything that you need and having the guts to let go of things that you won't need. Okay? So that's what we're going to talk about. Okay? So again, in my more than 20 years of experience, starting at a very young age, there's a lot of things that could happen, and that your perception of things change, and even your understanding. So I started with a teacher. uh well, if you are 6 years old, diba, the way they teach you is different when you are older. So there are a lot of things that you might just be doing because you were instructed to, or you were told to do it, not really necessarily understanding what's happening, because at that young age you don't really know. No, all you know is that when you move the bow, the string uh makes sound, 'di ba? Parang ganun. You don't really account for a lot more things, because what they tell you is how you just do it. No, it's following and copying. No, the same thing. That's why children, no, tend to speak English more fluently here in the Philippines, because there's a lot of English TV shows, diba? The tongue of a child is easily uh learning those things because they hear it all the time, they see it all the time. The same thing when you're taking lessons at an early age, you're so exposed to so much things that are happening all at once that you absorb not everything, but you absorb the parts that are being exposed to you as much. No? So the thing is, your mind will change. No, the way you think, the way you perceive something might change. And it's not just, oh, next year ganito na, from 6 years old to 7 years old. No, it's a long process that happens. No, and then of course, if you have different teachers, I for one had, like, I don't know, around 5 to 6 different teachers. No, that they may not have the same set of skills or foundations that they build upon. So you have to change things when you move from one teacher to another, right? Like, for example, I remember one teacher didn't want me to move my hand, another teacher wanted me to move my fingers for bowing. One teacher wanted me to play super sideways, and another teacher wanted me to play in front. So those types of things, no, you have to constantly adjust because you're progressing, no. So it's never a question of right or wrong. Maybe sometimes, yes, that comes in, you know, changing bad habits, not necessarily bad habits. Maybe changing old habits into some new habits that are basically the same thing, only improved, no? So parang updated version of the things that you were doing before. Okay? So those types of things. And but sometimes it also happens that you might feel that the technique you were doing before isn't giving you enough, and that something you should need to learn to right now can give you the solution to the problems that you had before. No? So unlearning is a skill, really. No? It's also I think it's a mindset. A mindset of letting go of your ego. Because if you know something and people try to correct you, 'di ba? It feels like a part of you is getting off, no? But the thing is, you have to accept that in order for you to learn something new again, you have to let go of the past things that might not be helping you right now. Okay? So I like to think of our minds as sponges. A sponge, diba? When you put it in water, whether the water's dirty or clean, can't really filter out the dirtiness of the water. So it just actively absorbs everything. No, the brain just absorbs everything that you are trying to do. No, it doesn't select between good or bad. It just accepts whatever it's there is there. No, it accepts whatever you throw it into. That is why you have to actively filter out whatever you're trying to learn. No, there will be times that you might not get what you need to, just because there's so much information coming in. That's why you need to sift through the information before you really get it into your system, before you really digest those uh, information or knowledge that you will get when you try to learn them again. So it's really uh, your active participation in trying to let go and then trying to learn something new. No, they say you can't teach old dogs new tricks, but the thing is, we're not dogs. Okay, if your mind is active enough and you are receptive enough for change, it's not going to be a problem for you to really change your techniques, unlearn certain habits, no, improve. But if you can't let go of those things, it would be harder. No? So the same thing goes with bowing. Let's say bowing. Personally, if you look at my videos when I was younger, I think I have a few videos on YouTube that you could check. My bowing isn't the same. It's really not. No. I mean, I know what I'm doing back then because I was already, a little bit older, and I understand how it works. But when I got to college, I really got into learning the ins and out of the instrument. That's why I changed my bowing. No, for example, it doesn't mean that I was doing it incorrectly. I was just doing it in a way that was inefficient for me. Okay? So I had to change because it was not efficient at all for me during that time. So that's why I changed my bow stroke. No? And to be honest, it's still changing every day. No? It's still a process of getting the most out of a certain technique or getting the most out of a certain movement. That's the goal. It's never to just end up with no forever na ganito yung technique ko, no? And that stagnation will bring you, I don't know, it will bring you down. It won't lift you up if you're stagnant with learning, whether that's technique, repertoire, uh theory, or something like that. If you don't read, diba, when you're stagnant in your journey or your process, it's a bad thing for you generally. So you try to evolve, and in that process, no, I mean, our brains can only uh, carry so much information before it really, you know, prioritizes what you need to do. That's why there will never be a time that you have to carry everything and never let go of those things. Of course, from time to time, you would go back to certain techniques, but if it's out of the routine already, of course, it's gonna be better for you. Yeah? It's like that. It's hard. Yes, personally, it's going to be hard. I mean, unlearning is really trying not to do something, but the brain functions, no? Uh, they call it muscle memory, will be a hindrance for you, especially if you've been doing something for so long, no? Like, I had students before that they started playing the instrument at a young age. So when they picked up the instrument again, let's say 10 or 20 years after they stopped, they still carry that awkward bow hold, say, because they were young, and you can't really force a hand to move properly. So it was hard for them to let go of that, because that's what they thought was correct during that time. But of course, uh, as I was saying earlier, when you were young, you were taught just to follow. It really doesn't matter as much, but as you grow older, of course, it's going to matter more. So you have to change your bow holds, and it was really hard for some. It was easy for others, no? It will really depend on how far you're clinging on to whatever you're trying to unlearn, diba? Because if it may not be, you know, hindi mo man sadyain, no? It might not be forced that you're not, that it's hard for you to unlearn, but sometimes you really have to put in the effort, okay? So it's all about the effort of focusing on one thing and being aware that you're doing it correctly. Because sometimes our body will tend to go to the easiest route. What is the easiest one? The one that you already know, no? That's why you always go back to what you already know. Now, if you're trying to change something, it can't happen like that because your mind already has this shortcut going into that process, but you're trying to change that process, diba? So in order for you to change that process, you have to take away the the certain automatic route that your brain goes to, right? So technically you have to rewire your brain in order to go to that destination inside your head without going through that route. So that is how you unlearn, you know? And it's really a process of being there, being present when you're practicing. 100% focus. You have to be able to identify when you are coming back to that technique or are you really progressing, diba? So sometimes you wouldn't really know that that you're not doing it properly because it feels comfortable already, right? Sometimes the other way around. When it feels uncomfortable, you don't want it. That's why it's hard to unlearn. So what ends up happening is you go to what's comfortable, even though, let's say, for example, when you hold on to your violin and nasanay ka na nakaganon, no, your hands are or your wrist is touching the body of your instrument. Even if it's technically uncomfortable, if you're used to that, it would be hard for you to put your hands down or put your wrist down. It will always go to a position, even if it's uncomfortable. If you don't actively look at it, check it every time until it becomes the natural route that your brain tells your body to go to. No? So those things take time. Last year, I think, or 2 years ago. Oh, so the pandemic's been going on for so long. So it's already been 2 years. I changed my bow hold, my violin hold, technically. Yeah, and it was not easy, to be honest. No, I've been playing for so long. It wasn't really uh wrong in the first place. It was actually pretty okay. I got by through my career with the same violin hold. Maybe it changed during my late days in high school, my violin hold, and I carried it throughout until I graduated. But it was just 2 years ago that I actually uh, actively changed it. No, but I was already trying to find a better way to hold on to my violin. And then I've changed it in a way that it's easier for me to move. I can move faster, more relaxed, and uh, more accurate when I'm trying to play. So it took me, I think, a month or 2 months to really be comfortable with this position that I already am doing. No, but I could still see it on video sometimes na bumabalik. I still go back to my old ways sometimes. And it's still a process. It's still an ongoing process, no? It's not 100% perfect. I can say it's around 70 or 80% going into that, but it has come to a point wherein I don't really need to check it at as much because I could already feel that it's changed, but there would always be times that I would go back. So it's still a process and it's an ongoing process that will technically never end. That's I think what people don't understand about learning art. No, it's a never ending process of learning and learning, learning and learning, progressing, evolving. No, so making sure that you are right on track on whatever you're trying to do, to trying to accomplish, is really an important thing to take note of, because it's not just about learning, 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 learning. No, of course it's gonna compound, but there are things that you need to let go in order for you to progress even more. You can't carry a bag that's already full and f- fit in a ton more stuff later on down the road. You have to drop something off, and it's perfectly fine. No? It's perfectly okay to do that, because that's just how it is. That's how progression works. It's not linear that you're gonna carry everything. That you could carry heavier loads, you have to carry heavier loads. No, what does that mean? Your knowledge must be super super extensive, yes, but you don't have to always have that in you. You know, it's the same thing as when you master something, it becomes boring, diba? So when it becomes boring, you don't have to think about it. So you can learn something new, add something new, and you forget about that. And when the time comes, since you already mastered it, that you will need it again, it will just come back, ba? So it's not a bad thing to unlearn, even uh, good habits, no? Sometimes you have to unlearn good habits as well, because there would be better habits that you could develop, no? Like for example, people tend to think that if you practice for hours on end the whole day, you'll accomplish more. And that was a mindset that was brought to a lot of my friends, colleagues before. But now there's a movement wherein people are trying to uh, prioritize rest and still get the same results, even better, because their mind is always fresh, your focus is better. No, you're not wasting 7 hours of your day being frustrated in front of your in front of your pieces, practicing them over and over again. And then you'll go to your lessons and just be sad na nagalit yung teacher mo. It doesn't happen that way, diba? Now people are trying to understand that if you could rest, if you could play, let's say 50 minutes and then rest 10 minutes every time you're practicing, is a better chance that you will get whatever you're trying to play, a better chance of you to really absorb everything and be able to play it much much better than if you just stared at it for 7 hours, no breaks, diba? So those types of things change because we learn a lot, not just for in music, but also technology is advancing. No, the medical field is also advancing. We learn something new from our bodies, and it's perfectly fine to let go of old habits that are being replaced with new ones that are better for you, more efficient, and will make you a much much better version of yourself as you were before. No, it doesn't have to be a competition, to be honest. So it's always a good idea to check whatever or what's happening right now with me, or what do I need to work on. Is it okay? Okay pa ba ako? Nagagawa ko pa ba ng tama? Am I still on the right track? Or are there things that I need to improve on? No? Are there things that are holding me back that I have right now? That's one question you could ask yourself as well. No? It applies to everything that you do. If there's something that's holding you back and trying to find a way for it not to hold you back, or maybe try to find an alternative or a solution to whatever that thing is, that would be great, diba? Because if you can't find something, then maybe you have to stick with it. I don't know. You can't stick with it. But if If you can find something that you know and feel will make you better, why not try it out? No? That's how life works. It's not always about, oh, alam ko na to eh. Bakit kailangan ko pa magbago? If I already know these things, why do I need to change? Well, because there's something new and something better. That's one reason, right? A lot of people fear changing kasi baka hindi daw maging okay, no? Things might not be as good as you expected it to be. And then you change techniques. Of course, the burden of practicing again, yeah, unlearning and then learning something new. But putting yourself out of your comfort zone is a good way in order for you to really progress much faster if you just use everything, no? It's like if you're having a hard time in one passage, let's say in your concerto, whatever piece you're playing, and you just keep on doing it, the same thing over and over, and you still can't find results, maybe you could try something else, something different. Maybe the problem is not with the piece, or maybe the problem is not with your technique, maybe it's your mindset, maybe it's the way your body was positioned, maybe it's form, right? So it's not always about I don't know the technique. Sometimes it could be just the interpretation or how you perceive, no? Like for example, people tend to think when you're playing dynamics, no? Some people think pag forte laging matapang. And that comes out as when you play a forte passage, you always sound so strong. But sometimes it's not supposed to be strong. It's supposed to be expressive. Those are two different things. Diba? A change in your mindset could help out a lot. No? Changing fingerings. No? Unlearning and learning fingerings. Because sometimes we stick so much to a certain pattern. No? Like for example, if I play a concerto, no? And then I don't understand the fingerings that I'm doing right now. So I'll just go with the conventional fingerings that I know. But sometimes there are certain fingerings that would work better than most. So those types of things happen, no? So even if you've been playing a certain piece for over for decades, let's say decades, and then there's a suggestion that might come in for a new set of fingerings, and it's better and more efficient for your movements, why not try it out? Diba? There's nothing wrong with it, and trying to learn it and unlearn the old habits is really a great way for you to progress and become a better version of yourself. All right? Because if we stay with what we know, there's a big chance that we will just be on that level, no? Whether you're starting out, whether you're already a professional, it's not a bad thing to try out new things, even if you have already done it at a certain way every time you do it. Diba? There's nothing really to lose because you're learning something new, and you could always bring back what you've unlearned, no? Because what you've unlearned is still a part of the foundation that you already have, diba? It's the same thing as saying that you have to learn the rules before you can break them, diba? And when you start breaking the rules and disregarding the rules, you're still understanding that there are rules involved, diba? So you can still come back to it. And every time you come back to what you have already unlearned, it's not gonna take you so much. It's not gonna take up so much of your time because you already did it before. And that's the beauty of it, no? You're learning something new that you are currently using right now. And maybe down the line, you might need the habits or the whole old techniques back. You can still use it because you already have it in you, no? Even though you unlearned it a few moments or a few years ago, you can still go back to it and still fine tune it and turn it to something, another version of it, diba? So basically, everything that you already know could be turned into something new, and you have to learn it. And you have to unlearn the old things, turn something new again, old new. No? And also sometimes not new, but basically sometimes you discover old things that just make sense. No? Like if you read pedagogical books, or if you read, uh, treatises on the instrument that you're playing, no, not just in the violin, and you uncover things that you never seen or never heard of before, or never read of before, and try to apply it into your uh, daily practice routine or apply it to your technique. And if it works, it's good. And you could try to find out more about that thing and how you could apply that to modern day. No, I had a teacher who told me there's nothing wrong with the old techniques that we had, but the books that we have were written 40, 50 years ago, or even 100 plus years ago. The modern style of playing has already evolved, and we just developed from that perspective during those old times. And even the instrument has evolved throughout the history of making them and playing them, diba? So what must was applicable back then might not be applicable now, no? Not just for the instruments, but for the technology that we have, right? We have amplification, we have good acoustics, uh, we have strings that project even more, no? With louder or longer projections. The technology has evolved. We should evolve with the technology as well. And by finding those pieces of information, we could change it and make it into something that is modern, right? You can play a classical piece in the modern style or whatever, or with using modern techniques, but keeping the same vibe or same sound of it. That would be great for you, no? Because everything you do is still based off of those things. It just evolves. And it's a never ending, I don't want to call it struggle, but it's a never ending journey, because music is an art form that you can't trap inside a box. So even if you record it or whatever you do with it, it's still something that you could look forward to for the rest of your life, because evolving in this space is a lifelong process. Yeah. All right. So this has been Usapang Musiko, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. It'll be live on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all major podcast platforms by Friday. And I hope you tune in on that. And of course, we have a lot of stuff coming on YouTube, on Spotify. Follow me on Spotify, not just my podcast, but also my original music. Check it out there. And my course on Udemy is still available. Check out Jellynote Play, guys. So I have a link, all links that you need down in the description box below. Follow me on all my socials. This has been Ryan Monakil for Usapang Musiko, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.